Did you want waffles?
Go.
Good morning, y'all.
I didn't know the intro was running. I didn't know how
Yep.
close we were to this.
Yep. Here we are. Welcome to the show. Woohoo!
It's one of those days, everybody. Junie and Hunter are both real tired and out of it.
Oh man. Welcome to Warlocks and Waffles. This is a show. It's a morning show.
No, you had it right the first time.
It's a show.
It's a show.
Welcome to it. You're here, so are we. And that's all that it takes. Good morning.
That's literally bare minimum.
Bare minimum.
There
we're
should
here.
be more. There should be way more involved and or required. But the bare minimum.
I can make no promises.
We should. We're the bar is. It's a lot easier to clear the bar this way, y'all. It's a lot easier to check those boxes if they're like real down there on that quality meter.
Man.
We showed up. It's National Corn Chip Day, y'all, and I have some corn chip facts for all of you.
I'm ready.
Do you know Mel Blanc, like the guy, like
Mel Blanc
of Mel Blanc? I'm sorry, I said blank. You see, today's such a garbage day. I'm sorry, man.
It's really unacceptable.
He was the voice of the Frito Bandito. You know what I mean? I didn't know if everybody knew that.
I didn't know he was the voice of the Frito Bandito.
Of the mascot until 1967.
Yeah, before it was taken down tragically.
Yeah. Whoa. What do you mean tragically? I mean, this is more problematic.
It was incredibly.
Hunter, what are you saying? Are you trying to call for the Frito Bandito to come back? Are you trying to get this back?
'Twas meant to be ironic, but my voice is very tired. More notably, the voice of like Bugs Bunny.
Yeah. Mel Blanc of Frito Bandito fame.
Yeah. Oh man. Off to a great start. Continue this very important thought that you've started down about the Frito Bandito.
I got nothing. No.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case.
I was gonna keep going into facts, and then I bit into the Frito Bandito like train of thought, and it was the wrong move. It was the wrong move.
Yeah, he took
Hunter,
he took your thoughts just like he took your Fritos. I was gonna say he took your Banditos, and that was wrong.
Hunter, how? Yeah.
Oh man.
There's multiple holidays today.
So anyway, it's
also
Bubble Wrap Appreciation Day.
Yeah, I celebrated on Friday because my kid found a bunch of bubble wrap, and it was just like just all over the floor. My kid was just stomping on bubble wrap all over the floor, and it was just it was war zone for a little bit.
I believe it. We took the whole weekend off to make sure that we properly observed Bubble Wrap Appreciation Day. And then I realized that I had no bubble wrap in the house, and it was like, well, it's not a real holiday, so I just didn't do anything about it. More importantly, and more on topic of this particular show, it's National Puzzle Day. Junie froze and stared into the void there for a moment.
The caffeine hit me as you were saying that National Bubble
Ooh,
Wrap Day
caffeine
wasn't a real
sounds
holiday.
delicious right about now.
It's working, and like my pupils dilated as you said it was not a real holiday, and I was like, the hell?
Say that again. Say that to my face.
Say that to my face.
But yeah, it's National Puzzle Day.
Let me read you the first things I wrote down
yes.
about National Puzzle Day.
Please do.
Or just puzzles in general. And then I'm a fan of puzzles. I like puzzle games.
Mm-hmm.
I like figuring things out. I like escape rooms and such. So in real life, Junie really likes puzzles. Junie as a DM does not like using puzzles.
No, absolutely not. The vast majority of my games, I will avoid puzzles or riddles at all costs.
Yeah. Riddles, oh god, yeah. No, I avoid riddles. I do accidental puzzles where something I realize has become a puzzle or become something that needs to be solved. But
do you ever listen to the Adventure Zone?
Yeah.
There's a running bit in there where like there will be just a part of the story set up, and when they like get through it, they'll be like, you solved my
you solved
puzzle, and it's like it wasn't a puzzle, it was just you opened the door. I feel like that quite often in games where I'm like, this wasn't meant to be a challenge.
Correct. Yeah, I've definitely like, congratulations, you've conversed with a person.
Yeah,
like, you know, I mean, like you did it.
You solved my introvert puzzle.
Yeah, exactly. So I love, like, I have, the books where it's like, different puzzles and traps and such.
Yeah, I have some of those.
I like stripping them away to like what makes those things cool. And it sucks because it's not that those things shouldn't be fun or aren't good or anything like that. It depends on like what your game is supposed to be like. And a lot of times in our games we have to value efficiency. We have to value like time management and stuff like that. And with a puzzle, unless the point is like unless the point is like
high risk on time sink.
Correct. So unless the whole point is you need to do it within an X amount of time, nobody wants to feel rushed because then they can't get it. They get frustrated. It snowballs into like, it gets less fun as time goes on because now the frustration is building if they're not getting it, or if they're, I don't know if you've done this, where you forget a very vital piece of the clue, the riddle, the something, and they're slaving away at something, and then you're like, there's a pair of scissors too. You know what I mean? You're just like, I forgot.
It wasn't in my notes, but I definitely meant to write that down.
A little something where it's just like, that's why they're having a hard time. I'm an idiot.
Right.
So like I was like, let me avoid that by never doing that again.
Right.
Do you have any like, for me it's like, unless it's needed, I don't do a puzzle. But do you have any like like, I literally wrote down bullet points of like, when, how long, when, like my biggest thing is like when to help, because I am the type of D&D player to be like, well, I have a 20 intelligence. My guy would know this.
Sure.
Can I roll for my guy to figure this out?
Right.
I'm an idiot. Like, where does that come in? Like, where does the line?
Yeah, I've absolutely allowed players to roll like a history check or something like that to see what they know of things, and then give like clues and hints and things. But yeah, I mean, it happens. There are times where I have come up with a puzzle and I'm like, this will be fun. And I put it in the game, and then the moment it starts, I'm like, this will not be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Where the players are like just clearly not into it. Riddles specifically. I feel like every time I put a riddle into a game, it is there's only two outcomes that ever come from a riddle. It's either that was so easy it makes no sense that like it is the
It can't
like
possibly be blank. Yeah.
right or like it'll be some riddle and it'll be like, in order to pass this, like the final leg of this gauntlet, you must answer my riddle. And then I give the riddle and they're like, well, it's this, like that's a very easy riddle, and we move on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, well, now you like, that doesn't feel like a good momentous move forward. Or it's like, yes, I Googled riddles for kindergarteners, and this is the first one on
Mm-hmm.
the list, and my players are stuck there for 2 hours arguing over the answer.
I,
Um,
yeah.
like there's only those outcomes for the vast majority of the time on riddles. Um, and so I try and steer clear of them, which is a shame because I feel like riddles are such a fun way to do things if you like if you do them well, but I don't feel like I often
Yeah.
do them well.
A- And I think that, like, in the context of a home game with your friends,
Mhm.
then it changes the dynamic of, like, this can be fun. We can all, like, oh, and especially, like, if you allow crosstalk and metagaming, because some
Mhm.
people are very, like, no, of, like, stop, your character needs to do this. And, like, that I feel like is, like, almost like you're putting a noose, like, a choker collar on your players, where it's just like, don't have fun. Stop trying to have fun. Um, but I saw something one time where I was like, this is how things are solved in my games. And it was an anime where it's like somebody was like, it was like a big old sphinx monster, said like, in order to pass, answer my riddle, what has four legs in the morning,
Mhm.
three in the afternoon,
Yep.
and two in the evening, or no, two in the afternoon, three in the evening.
Right.
um and the person was cowering, like, oh no, I'm gonna die. And this big muscly monster was about to just bash them. And then out of nowhere, the protagonist comes in and decks this thing in the face, knocking to the ground, like myrtleizing it with one punch, and goes, nothing like that can possibly exist, and solves it by beating the crap out of the thing, right? And I'm like, yup, that's how a guy I know would have solved it. Like, just literally goes,
Yeah.
like, he is so dumb. He's like, that can't possibly be a real thing.
I
Bam, that's the
I
puzzle. I solved the puzzle with my fist. And I can't help but go, I I mean, yeah, technically, if you could beat the thing, I guess you could just not. I guess that could be the answer.
yeah.
Nothing.
I'm
Nothing
always
has
a
that.
fan. I'm always a fan of the
Can I punch
one
my way out of it?
the one well, the like, if you're gonna present a riddle, like a riddle that has multiple possible answers to it,
Mm,
and like you'll accept any of them. Like, as long as it's a good answer to the riddle, like it is an answer to the riddle. Um that
I've done that.
particular riddle where it's like the like four legs, two legs, three
Yeah.
legs. I saw a webcomic the one time where the Sphinx asks that question, and the guy's like, I don't know, probably one of those new Pokemon. There's so many of them, I'm sure they do some weird shit like that. And the Sphinx is like, hey, that's fair, bro. I can't possibly expect you to know all the Pokemon. Go ahead.
That's really good.
I had a
That's really
I
freaking good.
I had a Sphinx once that like was there to buy, like, get them through the door. And instead of having them do riddles, they had to tell him a joke that he found funny.
Mm.
And so like it was just repeat like each player stepping up and giving like their favorite joke. Here's my best joke. And then if I thought it was actually funny, I like, yeah, absolutely go through. Otherwise they had to just stand there and keep telling jokes until
Just
they got past.
knocking out tight fives
Yeah, it was really good.
until they get down. Yeah.
It was really funny. Like a lot of them were like just here's a knock knock joke. Here's like one of them did one of those like really long like 5-minute stories that has like a weak punchline at the end of it. And one person did get up and just started like just going off on like a stand-up routine, but he was doing all jokes from like in world. And it was
Oh.
very funny. Like I don't know if he had for some reason already thought of like stand-up jokes
How would I do
for the
I
world,
do a tight
but
five in this world?
if he hadn't, it was so impressive. He just started like going off on it.
Did you ever see did you ever listen to Dungeons and Daddies where they
Mhm.
had to do tight fives?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like for people that don't watch, there was just a point where they were their characters, and some sort of shenanigans gave some of them like a different fictional character on top of that. So like somebody had to be their character, but also as Pickle Rick, so their character being Pickle Rick.
Yeah, it was wild.
Somebody was Borat, somebody was like, so they're their character also as something else, but then they had to do a tight 5-minute stand-up routine as that character in world. And that's layers to it.
It
I've done, yeah.
I would have panicked. Like
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
moment I was
They
told
had
like,
time,
"Hey, you
luckily,
need to
but
do
yeah,
this," I would have been like, "Oh, no, yeah, that's
yeah,
not
definitely
something
something
you
you want
can
to do time.
drop
What
in a session and be like, do this
I
thing." That's something you have to like prepare them for.
this flavor of logic puzzle, I think that me and Hunter are talking about. I use my, like, we know my favorite monsters are methods, but
Mhm.
my favorite antagonistic-y, like foil character are like trickster guys and like
Oh, sure.
archfey, because you can warp their logic. And we both said it, where as long as it kind of makes sense, your players can't get mad. Nobody likes the feeling of floundering and just not knowing what to do.
Right.
And it's, it's, you want to be able to just, oh, I did this, I know I can do this, and they'll move forward. So my favorite thing is like the way when you said like you tell a joke or something like that, and they if it makes them laugh, I get real meta where it's like I become the thing, and I'm like, would they think it's funny or something like that? But when you do that kind of thing, you could also give them the opportunity, because another bullet point I have here is like, when can they roll to solve something?
Mhm.
Because a lot of times what happens is, you present them with, a piece of paper, the words, something where they can, like, maze out or sliding puzzle or whatever. And then it's them. It's the real world. You're bringing the game to the real world, and they're relying on, not my character's level 20 intelligence. You're
Mhm.
relying on Junie's maybe 11, like, like something where it's just like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
not dumb, but this is requiring a little more to it, which is, fun if you really like puzzles, and I do, and it's my friends, we could laugh at each other, blah blah blah. But my guy's supposed to be epic and I'm floundering, type of thing.
Mhm.
Um, it's hard, in my opinion, it can be hard to try to balance the high intelligence, high strength, high dexterity, whatever, and how it translates into a puzzle solving.
Mhm.
But when it's like a subjective puzzle, like make a guy laugh or something, I love those because I love calling for roles. So I know I've done something where it's just like, tell me something that's blah, 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 blah. And then they'll do whatever. And if they succeed or fail, I'll ask people for insight checks.
Sure.
And then you can go like, you can tell this guy really thinks dark humor is hilarious.
Yeah.
Now you've given
Yeah.
everybody like a guide, or you're not giving them the
Right.
answer, but you've let them all peer into them and they can use their character in that way. But if it's like a sliding puzzle and it's like, oh man, I'm smart, like what the heck? And it's just like, you can tell that if you put all the pieces that go on the bottom of the puzzle and all the pieces where they go, the puzzle's complete. Like, no, that's like, what are you gonna do the puzzle?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any rules for like them incorporating more of their characters into like a puzzle or something like that, or do you have any fun stories where you've had to do that? Because me, it's mostly if they flounder enough, I will like it's using that like cheat hint where it's just like you see a button or like
Right. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
think this, and I end up having to do some of it to like speed it along.
Yeah. I'm always a fan of having a like a workaround to the puzzle if
Smart,
absolutely
that's smart.
necessary. Or like I did a labyrinth with one of my groups not too long ago.
Hmm.
And one of the things I did with that was in order to find their way out, they needed to hit a certain number of like successful encounters before they hit a certain number of failed encounters. And those encounters
Okay.
could be like combat, they could be riddles, they could be puzzles, they could be like any sort of thing. And so at any time, if they decided, oh, actually, not into this, just gonna go ahead and like bypass this
Hmm.
one, they could just go somewhere else and do a different one. It counts as a failure, but like they could abandon a thing. So if they like they get to a wall that has like a riddle on it, you need to solve the riddle in order to pass. They could just decide not to do that riddle and just run like further into the labyrinth to find a different path. And it counts as a failure. And I think I had the like 3 successes before 5 failures or something like that, to give them a little bit of wiggle room. But yeah, it was like that worked pretty well. I also somebody said in some video that I watched forever ago, they were like, when dungeons are built, especially if somebody is like inhabiting the dungeon, there has to be a way to bypass things. Like
That's really good
there
logic.
has to be a way to like turn off the uh the traps. There has to be a way to like open the door without having to like face the Sphinx. There has to be a way through that isn't a nightmare
I
um
love that. Oh god, I don't use that enough.
for whoever
It's
is
so good.
there. Um but yeah, so like I've done that in the past of like if they're really stuck, like make investigation checks, see if you can like find that way to bypass it. And sometimes it's as simple as like oh yeah, here's a hidden lever that opens the door.
It's so
Here's
smart.
a
I absolutely love that.
here's a stone in the wall that if you push this, it disarms the traps in this hallway for the next minute or something like that. The But I've also done a room that was like filling up with poison gas, and they were like trying to get through the door and they can't get through the door, and so they're like looking around and they realize that like the ceiling, one of the like stones in the ceiling would push and open up, and there's like a crawl space
Mm,
up above because there's like the tank that has the poison gas is like up
mm.
in the ceiling. And so like there needs to be a way to access it. And like
It's so good.
thinking through those like how did the people that built this build this, and how did the people that like work or live in this dungeon do so? Because like a sphinx in a dungeon or like any other monster in a dungeon doesn't make a whole lot of sense if
Mhm.
they're just there.
In a vacuum. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Like the number of dungeons I've been in where it's like, oh, this is a dungeon, and also there's goblins here. And I'm like, do you know how much horrible stuff I had to like disarm and get through in order to get down here, and there's just 3 goblins in
Goblins,
this
yeah.
room.
They
Like,
crawled through a crack in a wall somewhere, and they're here.
right, like, they're like,
Mhm,
how did they get in? And also, if they're here now, how do they get back out? Um,
mhm.
like, that can be a a good way to bypass, like, the I forget who it was that said it, but, like, as soon as that information was, like, in the ether, I was like, "Ooh, that's a fantastic,
That
piece of
needs to be,
advice."
like, on every DM screens, like, a Post-it on every DM screen, like, and write it on your hand because that's something I keep forgetting.
Mhm,
I just saw like, textbook, like, exactly what you're saying, where somebody was fighting something in a show, and they were like, "How do I do this? It's a machine." Well, the logic of it would be, like, it would need maintenance, and they kind of kept looking around it, and they found a ladder, a maintenance ladder
mhm.
to climb up it. So that's how he figured out how he needed to climb the thing. And I was just like, like making sure that like the rules that would make sense are already there. Um, I have you ever had I know something that would be like where it's just something where it's like there's no roll out of it. Like there's like it's an inevitability. Um
Also,
for
I
story
should
points or something.
mention, because I just noticed you have text on your screen,
Huh?
your camera is flipped.
Oh,
So
that's
so
funny.
that text
I
is
could flip it.
backwards.
Oh, I could flip it because that's really funny. But anyway, oh wait, I mean, I could do it. Hold on. I can flip. Yeah, there we go.
For those at home, oh, nope,
Nobody needs to know. They can
can't
hear the
read it in the
difference.
window. Uh,
Well, damn, I could do it. I'm gonna know. This is a bit that I'm gonna have
you're so close. It's
there.
so
No,
tiny, I love it. For those at home, Junie faces a different direction than I face, when we're actually sitting at our
because
computers, so
we're at the same room. We're in the same room at our computers. We're facing different directions.
yeah.
Um,
We could just
it's for
turn
mic
to look at
purposes.
each other, but we're not going to. Um,
Correct. Don't tell
so
us what. Don't tell us how to do our jobs
Judy's video is flipped so that it looks like we're looking at each other on the overlay.
because that's how you build a more enjoyable viewing experience.
Because Junie
Uh,
refuses to just turn the other way.
because my monitor's here, right? And I'm trying to
No,
make the light hit me.
I
I
totally get
have
it.
my mess of a room hidden with the green screen. The caffeine is in, baby. Okay. So,
I just got my
have you
first dose.
nice. Now the show's gonna get real good. We're halfway in and we're starting for realsies. Um,
This is the real start. The real puzzle was the caffeine we lost along the way.
yeah, it was puzzling our way to get to the caffeine. So floundering
Ah,
and
you've
surviving.
reached the lair of the Sphinx. To pass, you must bring me a coffee.
Mocha choco bullshit, please. Um, like,
Imagine going into a dungeon,
mhm.
and there's just like a sphinx who's been left alone for so long, and it's just completely insane, and he's just
Oh,
like,
I was gonna ask you
"No,
what your
just
Sphinx voice is, because I have
oh, there's
one. I've
so
used
many."
one Sphinx. I've
Yeah.
used one Sphinx, and I hate it and love it. It was I don't know what if this is from something, if it was a pre-written it wasn't a module, but I don't know if it was like a little pre-written venture that I modified, but it
Mhm,
was something about like, there was, thefts, like, items were being stolen all around like the area, and the adventurers basically going in to like get the person, and one portion of like this super villainy type multi-layer like hideout dungeon
mhm.
has a sphinx, I think
Nice.
guarding the entrance, but it has like some sort of metal something or other on its head, like almost
Okay.
like a crown or something, and it looks obviously like wrong, and it's very strong, or but like if the players damage it enough or whatever, they could damage the crown, and it's almost like the sphinx comes to its senses, and
Nice.
it's been like over like dominated, um but it didn't I had it not speak or anything beforehand, but once it did, I was just like it would be like I think of like eccentric, otherworldly, like hyper, like aged, like wise being, but then like I haven't been able to think for myself for a long time. I've had to do this, and it slowly became that creepy voice where
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll help you. I didn't like what he did to me. So my
Right.
Sphinx is like that,
Yeah.
only like,
Yeah.
hide, like trying to hold back the rage, but they're crazy. And it's just like, no, I would like to get all of his fingernails, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just
I
like, I don't know how many Sphinxes you used, but I've used one and it was crazy. It
I
was driven to a point.
I have used I've done a couple Sphinxes.
Oh, my
The
hand's shaking. That's the caffeine's real
that's
in it
that's
right now.
the
I'm like,
good caffeine. There's the one Sphinx I did was like very much the like kind of Zeus vibes of like you have entered the tomb of the Sphinx.
I love
And
that.
just like goes off and does his riddles, right? The other one I did
He puts on his tiny glasses and he takes out his little book. He's just like, first riddle. I have 4 legs in the morning.
Did you ever I don't know the name of the type of dog I'm talking about, but did you ever see the live action 101 Dalmatians?
Yes.
Do you remember Cruella de Vil's dog? That is like
Oh God.
mostly hairless, but it has like a poof of hair on the top.
Yes, because I think that's also the one from like Zoolander. I think I know what you're talking about.
Also in Zoolander. That I had a Sphinx that I described as looking kind of like that, where it was just like this real mangy looking, like just poofs of fur and like bald spots and stuff like that.
You described a Sphinx, but wrong. I'm kind of liking that a lot.
But I described it like that, and they like walked in, and he's like,
Hey, welcome to the Sphinx's lair. You got riddles? I want riddles.
And they were like, aren't you supposed to ask us a riddle? And he's like,
no, ask me a riddle. I want riddles. Ask me a riddle. If I don't get it, you can go.
And it
Chinese
was
dog. The chat has declared.
What is it?
Chinese crested dog. Thank you,
Perfect.
Rosie.
Love that. But it was this like very incorrect Sphinx of like, you ask me a riddle. If I can't get the answer to it, you can go through, like you can pass. And they just had to ask it like riddles until they got one that it didn't know, and then it was like,
ooh, that one was good, go ahead.
And just like open the door for it. I also did a magic mirror once, which was like you walked in and the mirror would ask you riddles, and like you had to get it right, otherwise like bad things happen. But what I did was all of the riddles were like kind of pun riddles, and the answers, if the player didn't get it right, then the answer was always like something that it was going to like put into the room to fight the players. So like one of them was like, when does a cat not tell the truth?
When I feel like it's some sort of thing like when it's got its tongue, or when another cat's got its tongue, when it's making out, so another cat's got its tongue.
That's a really good one, but no, Rosie is correct. When it's a lion.
When it's a lion. I've heard this one. And I knew it.
And as soon as if they didn't get it right, then it would open a door and a just ravenous lion would enter the room and just start attacking them.
But if they did it my way, like a cat would come out and it'd be a very problematic, like sexually forward, like cat, where it's just like Tabaxi is just like, hey, you look hot, and it's just like, no thank you, and it respects them and it doesn't like cross any boundaries, but you're gonna have the bard or somebody's gonna be like, maybe hold on, let's hear it out. It's like, no, you're gonna be stuck making out with this cat. We're not gonna be able to go forward until like that, and look, it looks like it's in for the long haul. It's not gonna let you go anytime soon. There's a lot of pillows.
I'm not afraid of commitment. Like you're trying to lock this down.
Yo, stop. The caffeine's in, and I'm going down that plot thread. I want to go into like favorite puzzles and stuff like that.
Yes.
Because I have a favorite go-to puzzle. Whenever I know I can chew on, like, I try to set it to be less than 15 minutes, because that's something I know that like time is always like a factor with how much we're allowing to like
Sure.
go into puzzles. But I think what I was trying to say before with like inevitability and stuff like that, where it's just like this is what it is, and you don't want to make people feel railroady. But it's like, don't even bother rolling. This is just going to be this is how it is. I know I've done like to make like an evil scientist seem all powerful, almost like a tiny battle royale, and then like gas is clearly filling the room. And I know that there's nothing they can do. Doors are locked. There is no escape. So that like it sucks because I know they're gonna be like, it's a puzzle. I can puzzle my way out of it. And I have to like almost intentionally take down a player right away for them to realize,
Right.
oh, he's doing a fade to black. We're gonna be taken out no matter what we do.
Right.
But it sucks because you're gonna flounder from there's gonna be a moment where it's just like, we've all accidentally described a chair too good where everybody assumes that it's a puzzle. You know what I mean? And this is something where I'm like,
that's not the first time you've used that exact example,
because
and it cracks me up.
Because I know that it happened in Critical Role. It was one of their early situations with a chair, and I'm like, that sounds so ludicrous. And then the same thing happened to me. Like I'll describe like a lone chair in a room or something like that, and they'll be like, "Oh, what if I move it over to the light and I sit on it?" I'm like, like let go.
You've
let go of the chair.
You've met Elliot, right?
Yeah.
So Elliot, in his group that I run for, they very early on in their campaign, I described a door too well, and they got really like hyper fixated on this door. And then like they took the door off of the hinges. They like were like bringing the door with them through the dungeon. And then every door they encountered, they were like, I don't know how these doors are connected, but like they're gonna be important. They took every door from the dungeon, and then it became a thing of like going forward, because they realized afterwards like the doors weren't important, they weren't connected at all. It became this thing of like one of the characters is just like really gets amped up around doors. Like that's what had happened. And so they started saying the character's name is Branigold, shout out Branigold. The character's name is Branigold. And they would, if I ever describe a door too well, they would say, "Oh, careful, Branigold's getting dorny. Like he's getting all worked up for doors." And
getting worked up for doors. That's
good. It's now an ongoing thing throughout the entire campaign.
Yeah. I love like it, like my favorite intentional not puzzle clue is when a new player is going like, all right, I'm gonna go here. It says actually you're just gonna walk into this room. All right, which hand do you use to open the door? And just the look of panic and just like, what? And it's pro tip, everyone, ask somebody which hand they use to open a door. They will agonize over it because it's something you don't always think about.
You also immediately learn who are your people who are like, I'm in it for the story will be told, and who is like, I'm doing this to optimize my character. Because the person, some people will be like, I mean, I'm right-handed. I have no reason not to open it with my right hand. I guess it's my right hand. And then you'll have people who are like, well, I'm right-handed, so like I'll use my left hand to open it. And it's like, why though? My favorite one of those questions is the being like, what type of armor are you wearing? And they're like, leather. And I'm like, do you feel like that would have gloves? And they're like, maybe. And I'm like, okay, I just need to know if you're touching this with your skin. And they're like,
oh, that's good. Yeah, that's
yes. And I'm like, okay. The door opens, and the like paranoia of like, what does that mean? If I hadn't touched it with my skin, would it have opened? If I do,
the door was a weird anamorph, right? So it needed to like touch you, and now it can turn into you.
It needs an act of human kindness.
My what is it? What is it? I keep wanting to get to this one puzzle that like is my favorite puzzle, but then I think of other puzzles.
We keep spiraling around it.
Because there's so many. Like I actually know a door puzzle, and it's and I don't know. I think I modified it, but it was something where it was like it was a puzzle, and it had like almost like a you know how you would see like a bell over a shop.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like you'd ring. So it was like hanging over the door. You would see like a little, like a hand that when you open it, you're like, oh, it's going to hit that or touch it. It's going to stop it, whatever the situation is. And on the door, it says manners maketh man.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like somebody goes to open the door.
Like Kingsman.
Yeah. So if somebody goes to open the door, it's just like the door starts to open. The hand slams the door shut and slaps you. Not like maybe enough to do a damage, but just like, psh. And it's like, what? It's like it like didn't like rip it out of your hands like with the force of like a gale. It like a forceful like and then slaps you. And I just remember I've done this like twice, and one person, they didn't get it. They were fighting with it until somebody got it, and another person immediately was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." They either knocked or they just said, "Excuse me, may I come in?" And then the door comes down, the hand comes down and opens the door for you.
Yeah.
But it was so funny to watch the first player I ever did it with. Like, I try to hit the hand. I try to, and they're trying to fight the hand and try the whole thing. And then it wasn't until somebody's like, "What does the door say again?" And then I was like, "Manners maketh man." And somebody's like, "Man, all right, can I ask it?" And I was like, "Give it a shot. Can I come in, please?" And then it just opens the door. But it was such a ridiculous fight.
I love that. Just because I thought of it when you talked about like the little bell above a door. I have a shop in my world that instead of having like a little bell on the inside, there's a little ledge above the door, and there's a little gargoyle that sits on that ledge, and anytime somebody walks in, the gargoyle just yells "ding-a-ling-a-ling."
Oh, that's funny. It's just like, "Customer." It's like, no, ding-a-ling-a-ling. That's funny. That's really good. My favorite thing, I think I got this from it is I know it's not from this, but it the YouTube channel I saw it on was he does a lot of he does like spell explanations. Man. Oh, it's the animated spell. No, the animated spell book are. Oh, it's Z Bashu. He yeah. He does a lot of like a lot of animated spell book sponsored cards, but he does like he explains a spell. And at one point he explains his puzzle he likes, and it is a button puzzle. And essentially you lead people into a room with like smooth walls. How are we going to describe its lit? I like to describe it as almost like a recessed, like just in the like the corners are lit. It's magic, you know what I mean? It could just be the room is lit, but there is a pedestal in the middle of this room. And along the edges on the inside, you see like different weapons or symbols for like fire, a hammer, a sword, things like that. And then there's some water, not too deep bowl, and a button raised in the middle of this pedestal with a handprint.
Okay.
And you see a door across the way. So when everybody comes in, you wait for everybody. As soon as they set foot into this room, the door slams shut behind them. They are trapped. They're like, "Oh no, it's trapped." Everybody's gonna do investigation checks and stuff like that. And the investigation check will reveal, like above the door across the way, there is a like a counter, like a little almost elevator type thing where it goes from 10 to 0. If you want to make it fun, make it a language that only one or a few of your characters reads. You know what I mean? Know your character sheets. Ask them that question: what languages do you speak? And then pick a random one, so that way that person feels special. You know, you don't always get to use everybody's languages on their character sheets, but then it's like, oh yeah, it's in Dwarvish. You know, it's like, oh, it's in Elvish, something like that. But eventually someone will touch the button. And when they do, the numbers will light up across the way, and it'll be at 10, it'll be green, and then it'll just kind of go from 10 to 9. And as it's going down, like it goes from that, you know, green to yellowish to orangish, then to red. But it's going down, and then when it starts getting to like yellow, that lights get like dim or flicker.
Mm-hmm.
Then it gets to like bright yellow. It's the lights are getting darker. Then orange, the lights might start flashing, and everybody's kind of panicking. Nothing on the walls, everything's smooth, nothing else on the pedestal. People are going to try to hit with weapons the thing. They're going to try to shoot magic at it. Inevitably, I have not had an instance where it never happens. Someone's going to hit the button again. And if it does, everything will go black. And when the lights come back on, the timer is at 10. Nothing's flashing. And then it goes to 9,
Mm-hmm.
8,
The
7.
reset
Have fun
button.
with the timer.
Yeah.
It could be like bullet time. You know what I mean? Like go 7, 6. What are you guys doing? Blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
blah,
yeah.
5, 4. But just as the numbers are getting down, make it crazier. It's
Mhm.
it's techno raving. It's just real ominous. They might hear a grinding, but they'll eventually hit the button again and reset.
Right.
And so it's like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And spoiler alert, they just have to do nothing.
Right. The timer has to hit 0.
You just have to let it hit 0. When it hits 0, everything goes black. Lights come on, but the door is open. I try not to let that puzzle run for longer, 15 minutes, because
Right.
then it goes from like,
the
longer
that goes, the more frustrating it is when they realize that it was
because I know that
nothing.
I've let it run, and when they get the solution, they're like, all we had to do was just let it go.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, yep, you solved the door puzzle. You just had to do nothing.
Yeah. Well, it's a very similar one to my my spikes from the ceiling one. Except with the spikes from the ceiling one, it's like the spikes come down, and like somebody has to take a point of damage. It's just one single point of damage, and then the spikes go up and the door opens. But yeah, I'm always a fan of the like, you're preventing some horrible thing. No, you're not. You're like just you're resetting the door opening. And if you want to be really weird about it, with yours, with that one specifically, because you already described it as being this like dial, like an elevator showing what floor it's on.
I do. I think like the way it's seen was like, it's like a circle, but either way, like anyway, it's a countdown some way. Yeah.
If you do it as the elevator one, you just have, when the door opens, it's just actually an elevator. And it has to like, you get on, and then there's like buttons to take you to the other floors.
I never thought of that. That's
and so
really
you've
funny.
just been like resetting the elevator.
That's actually really funny. I really like that.
Man.
So
there's so many good ones.
Do you have any types of puzzles that you lean towards over others? Like, I think what I tend to lean towards are more like skill challenging things, because
Sure.
I like people to, if somebody's going to use their real world skills and abilities, like, you know, like they know something, they know music, you know, I mean, they I'm not going to be like, you can't do that, your character can't, like, you know, we'll find a clever way to get that in there. So I like to do more skill challengey, like they need X amount of successes, or they'll get the key clue to help a person do it.
Yeah.
But the only other ones are like the never ending path, where it's just like something's inevitable, you have to like let something happen or just do something in a very specific way. Those are the two like I gravitate towards. But do you have like a type of puzzle, you know, like more often than not, I'm doing blank?
So
riddles, you know, I mean, like
when it comes to puzzles, I figured like a while back that when I would put a puzzle into a game, it had a tendency to slow the game to a halt. Like, we're gonna just kind of like, we're not moving forward anymore. The like, if it's a riddle or something like that, I now have to solve this riddle before I can continue doing anything. Like, they had a tendency to stop the game. And so I don't do a whole lot of like riddles and puzzles when it comes to like a dungeon. Like, if it's a dungeon, maybe I'll have like a trap that's kind of a puzzle where like you can figure out a way through it or whatever. But more often than not, when it comes to like riddles and puzzles and stuff, I incorporate those into the like the world building and the story and that sort of thing, and put like clues to a larger puzzle in the story and the game as they're playing, so that the people who want to solve puzzles have those clues to like try and solve that thing for the future.
Mhm.
More like a mystery than a puzzle book. And so I'll put like a clue here and a clue there that leads you towards the big reveal, so that people who want to can kind of start trying to solve that ahead of time.
I love that. I
The
really do. That's good.
That way it's more like
There's a
optional is the
buy-in,
wrong
like you
word.
can opt
Yeah,
into it. Yeah,
there's
I
like
like
a
that. Yeah.
like if you are into puzzles, there's
Mhm.
puzzling for you to do. If you are not, then you're not that person who's sitting at the table waiting for the rest of the team to like solve the puzzle. I had a group a while back that was like not into riddles at all, and I
Mhm.
sent them into a dungeon thing where I had like there was a choke point where it was the only path forward, and in order to get in, you needed to solve 3 riddles. Um, and it took like an hour and a half. Only 2 people were participating. Like,
Mm.
one person decided that they were going to go off on their own and try and like find a different route through. And their character died in that process. Like, it was a horrible session. And so after that, I really scaled back my use of like puzzles and riddles in a way that stops progression. Because
Mm.
I love a puzzle. I love being able to like noodle on something and figure something out. But if it stops the game, if there is ever a puzzle that you can't move forward until you have solved this, unless there is a very good reason for that, or like I've done a door that like you need to solve this riddle in order to get through, but I had like given the players a way to get the answer to it before they ever got to the door.
Mhm.
And if that's the case, that's one thing, because like the players they have the answer, you've given them the answer, they just need to use it. If it's a situation where it's like, yes, solve my riddle or you can't move forward, it's a very good way to stop a game.
Yeah.
And so my strategy will always be uh incorporate puzzles in more of a way of like, uh okay, this room is trapped. If you want to, you can try and like navigate through the trap. Like, you can solve the puzzle of how this trap works. You can also try and disarm the trap. Like, it depends on how you want to go through. I try and give like a an out
Mhm.
for everyone, because I have groups that do really enjoy riddles and puzzles as well. But if you're not like, if it doesn't click, if that puzzle or
Mhm.
that riddle that you put out there just isn't working that day, like people are tired, they're not up for it, then you've s- you've stopped your session dead in its tracks. And so I like using um the story puzzles of like putting things in place for them to figure out, um so that there are like those big reveals, like those big reveals later on, where like you've laid the pathwork, even if your players aren't a like really into figuring out that stuff that you've put there. It's still good practice to put it there, because then when that reveal happens, it's so much bigger when they can look back and go, oh my goodness, like that thing that we saw 3 months ago, like that was because of this. If you lay the groundwork, you can have like those big realizations, which is a lot of fun. I had a player of mine message me like months after the campaign had ended to be like, hey, this one thing, like very early in our campaign, was that like hinting at this thing towards the end of the campaign? I was like, yeah, it was the first like example of the big bad, and he was like, that's insane.
Brilliant.
I love those.
I actually thought of a fun uh an the way you described, like it shouldn't halt everything. It should keep
Sure.
things going. I play with a
Momentum
lot of
is like the really big in sessions. If your momentum stops, that's when the fun stops.
I like to even if it's not progressing forward. I've notoriously had so many games that'll be 3 hours. Everybody will have a fun time. A lot of things will happen. I like to then go at the end of the thing. It's just like all of you have moved 3 feet. You've all done all this stuff. You did this. You've never left the room. And they're like, oh, oh. But what I like to do is, like, sometimes when I do things with bigger groups is I like to sometimes a DM can, trust your players and let things like let them self like regulate. And what I just thought of, like, while you were describing this, it hit me and I was like, I think I'm gonna do this tomorrow, is if you have like a multi puzzle or multi riddle door type of situation. Um and then, as like the big door with the lines of how many successes you need type of thing, people can go to solve these riddles, these puzzles. You have like a few easy-ish puzzles printed out ready to go. But at the same time, skeletons are coming in. Skeletons, zombies, a quick 1 hit preferably, 1 hit creature. Low AC, a hit's gonna take it out, flumps, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So then what happens is, okay.
Did you ever play 4th edition?
No.
4th edition had a concept of minions. And I don't know if it was in other editions as well, but I remember it from 4th edition, where minion monsters were like, they might have a decent AC, they might hit okay, but like they have 1 hit point. If you hit them, they die. And it was great for like making an encounter feel bigger, and also being at like, I don't remember, there's a little like notification in the back of my brain that's saying that like I feel like area of effect spells might not have worked on minions
interesting.
in core. I don't remember specifically. There's a little thing. It's been a very long time.
Okay.
But I always allowed it. Like if you're if you're a wizard throwing a fireball at a group of 20 things and they all die, that feels so good.
So, like, the fun part about the weird horde that I was just thinking about was, like, it's not going to end until you open this door, and you can kind of let them know that. So what will happen is, the person, if they want to take the time to physically solve the puzzle, let that real person physically try to solve the puzzle, and then it becomes like, all right, guys, it's your go, roll. This is the AC. Tell me if you hit. And then we can have some fun with some like fun flashy descriptions of you finishing these things off. If you miss, this thing might have a chance to hit you, and that's where you can just kind of like, it hits you and you're going to do some basic damage. So it's like, oh, this is an endurance thing. They don't always hit and stuff, but it's like they got to keep going. And you can kind of even let them just police themselves for a little bit. It's like, yo, I took out 15, or like, yo, I got hit 3 times, blah blah blah. Use average damage to go, like, I took 2 damage each time, and you can help the puzzly person, and if they're having trouble, let them figure out if they want to do it in real life. But then if they want to roll, then you just make it a skill challenge, and what'll happen is it'll go until the person just gets enough successes. So it's like they don't have to be great at puzzles. They just need to, oh, I need to roll higher than a 13 or a 15. So eventually they'll get those 5. Or what if the person's just really dope at puzzles and they just solve it right away?
Yeah.
So you can do you've essentially created 3 different types of challenges in this puzzle, and they can bounce between them. It's like, all right, you know what? Hell, let me go out there. I'll fight. You come back. You're better at this word puzzle than me. And then it comes that person's actually Sudokuing real quick, and the other person's like, nah, you know what I mean? And you can have multiple things happening at one time. And since combat 6 seconds or something like that, we can say you solved that in 6 seconds. It took
Right.
real life you
Yeah.
20 minutes,
Yeah.
but your guy did it in 6 seconds. But you could have 2 types of encounters happening simultaneously, and it won't require you to do too much babysitting, because it's like, it's a skeleton. You rolled a 10. You got it. Just keep rolling. And then you just keep puzzling out. And if you're like, never mind, can I just roll to solve it? They could just roll to solve it. But if they're like, oh no, I want to get this, because we all know people that want to solve the puzzle.
Yeah.
They'll try to do it, and they'll go that route.
Well, and especially if you're like, here's 4 different ways that we can get through the thing.
Give them options.
One, I using a very similar mechanic. I ran a fight once where it was, they entered a room. In the room, there was this like massive door. There were a couple of giant statues, and then there were 3 pedestals, as well. And the ways that you could open the door were, if you had the key, you could just go through. You could attempt to lockpick the door, but it was a very, very high DC. You could stand on the pedestals, have one person on each pedestal, and there was a drum on each of the pedestals, and you could sit there and play like this drum, and if all 3 of them were playing at the same time for, I think it was a minute,
Okay.
the door would open, or there was like a series of riddles, and so there were like 4 different ways that you could go through this door. The riddles were difficult. The lockpick DC was very high, and so most parties would choose, okay, we'll just play the drums. And so they would get onto these pedestals and they would start playing these drums, and as soon as the drums would start playing, it would call all of the monsters to that room, because it's just this thunderous drumming sound. And so then there would be waves of monsters that you're trying to hold off, for like until the drumming is done. And I gave one monster, who was like the like lead monster, who would be at the back after like 3 or 4 waves of monsters had come in, had the key as well. So if you like started drumming and then you abandoned the drumming and you just start fighting, then like you could fight through all the monsters. You beat the boss at the end. You have the key. You can go through the door. If you just keep drumming and people are like holding them at bay, after a minute, the door opens. So if you can hold them at bay for like, I think I took 3 rounds or like 4 rounds or something like that for the monsters to arrive there. So it was like around 5 rounds they had to like hold back the waves before the door would open. You could try and lockpick, you could try and do the riddle, or like if you fight through all the monsters, the boss has the key. So having a bunch of different options for getting through a door like that is always awesome. Like I can't remember a time where we had a bunch of options on a way to go and felt like, oh, we're stuck. Like that is one of the most frustrating experiences as a player, in my experience, is if I ever feel like I'm stuck because I don't know what the DM wants me to do in this moment.
Yeah.
Then the game's not fun. I'm not having a good time.
Nobody wants to flounder,
Right.
Yeah.
So if you have options, or like I've said it before, I will say it again. If you're a GM, you're like, yes, you have notes and you've written out how things like should go.
Where you would like things to go.
Or you would like
Yeah.
them to go. Your notes can be flexible. Like if something isn't like doesn't go exactly how you think it should, but it like it makes sense. Let it happen. I know when I was in high school, my group of friends and I that played, we had a session that my dad ran for us where it was a Christmas one shot, and so we were like storming Santa's castle and like going through and doing all this stuff. And he had gingerbread man golems that were attacking us, which was awesome, great monster. But in his head, they were very, very difficult monsters to fight. But there were like jugs of milk laying around, and if you splashed them with milk, they would just start dissolving. And so
Fantastic.
there was like this way to bypass them. My friends and I, we were like, okay, they're made of gingerbread. They are cookies. We have a decanter of endless water. And like we'll
Oh.
activate that on the like geyser mode and just use it as like a fireman's hose to like shoot them with the water. And my dad's decision in that moment was that doesn't affect them at all. Like the water doesn't do anything to them. Like that's not a thing. And all like I am still a little frustrated by that decision years later. But the like he came to me afterwards and he was like, "Hey, in the moment I was very against it. Thinking back on it like days later, he's like,
yeah.
I probably should have let that slide." But like if your players have a creative solution to something,
Be flexible, yeah.
and you can run with it. Obviously, if there is something that is like, this is a hard rule of my game, like this is a thing that is going to be like it needs to go this specific way, that's totally understandable. Like in the future, try and avoid situations like that. But like if you've written yourself into a corner or something like that, totally get it. It happens to the best of us. But if your players have a creative solution, try and go with it, because nothing is more frustrating as a player than having the GM be like, no, I don't like this thing that you've just come up with, this creative solution you've suggested. You can't do it. It doesn't work. Like why are you trying to do these things? Nothing will shut down the creativity of your players faster than when they are trying to be creative, you saying, no, don't do that thing.
I personally also like I think it shouldn't make it so that's wrong. You know what I mean? Someone's like, oh, this is not the way that thing was supposed to be solved. Acknowledge that it's like you are doing a different way to do this. You know what I mean? And if you make it like, it's like, okay, yeah, we did it. And he's like, you did it a different way. If they ever encounter the person that set that originally, he's like, oh, so how did you find the 3 keys to bypass the golem? It's like, we dropped rocks on it. And it's just like, what? Just imagine the look of superiority on your party and the look of shock on the bad guy, where it's just like, they flaunt, we bypassed your crappy puzzle.
Right.
How did
how did you defeat my Ifrit warlord guardian? We didn't
go there.
We gave him therapy. He went home to reconcile with his family. Like, if your players come up with a creative solution, and especially like I have had players come up with things in a game where I'm like, I'm so impressed.
Correct. Yeah.
By what you've done, because it is better than what I've written.
What I've said, like, I've full blown told people, it's like, oh, that's way better than what this is. So guess what?
The solution you've created is better than the one I have. So obviously it has to work. You
have outperformed this ancient wizard that has spent his lifetime perfecting the magic to create this thing. You have like just humiliated them. You've done it. Congratulations. If you have, Rosie has a fun thing where it's best encounters. Wait until the player comes up with a creative solution and roll with it.
Yeah.
Just you floundered. Don't let them know you're floundering.
Here's a space. Play in it. yeah, there's so much that your players can come up with. But if you foster an environment where they know that if they suggest something, there's a good chance that you'll like go, yes, let's roll with that, let's do this thing, like you absolutely can do that thing. Or like something I do a lot, and I think we've had a conversation about this in the past, is like if somebody goes, I want to do this thing, sometimes I will be like, you can do that thing, but like here's my offer, I will let you do that thing
Exactly.
in
It's
exchange
just
for
like,
this.
yeah, it's just like I will 1000% let you do this, but
Mhm.
there needs to be some like, caveat, some
Right.
some
An
drawback for
an
me.
additional
Yeah.
skill check, a risk associated with it, something.
I encountered a lot with newer or younger players where it's like I have a giant flaming sword, and
Mhm.
it's just like, well, no. All right, so how about this? Like, you can have a great sword. Let's just say maybe it's enchanted and it looks like it's in flames, but it's not. It's like, okay. I was like, you still get the visual of it, you still get it, but like,
Right.
you just level 1 coming into this, you can't have a crazy fire sword right now yet. You
Right.
know what I mean? I'm not saying you can't ever. Let's work our way up to it, type of thing.
You like in your background, the last job you did was like you provided security for a wizard or something like that, and as a thank you for that,
Yeah.
it glamored your sword to have like illusory flames coming off of it to look dope.
Yeah.
Like there's ways to work around that. Like I've had players who were like, I wanna jump off the top of this platform and do a flip in the air and take a shot in the air like Legolas and like A, B, and C. And I'm like, awesome. That sounds dope. I want you to do that.
I
So
want you to do that. Yeah, yeah.
here's
We
the
encourage you to. We want to see you succeed.
I
We don't
encourage
want
your
your failure.
dopeness.
Yeah.
Like I want you to do a cool thing. You've described something cool. I want all of my players to describe themselves doing cool things. So like when one of them does, that needs to be rewarded. So when somebody is like, I want to jump off, do a backflip, take a shot in the air, and then like land in a somersault and like get ready to shoot again. Like awesome. However, like you are 30 feet in the air, and the guy is running, like it's a difficult shot. I'll say, you're going to make an acrobatics check as you're in the air, and then you're going to make an attack roll. And if you succeed on both of them, then you have like done it. You do all of the stuff that you said. If you fail on the attack roll, there's a chance you'll hit your companion because your companion is right there. If you fail on your acrobatics check, you might just hit the ground and not get the chance to make an attack roll. Like give those options and give like the possible like downside of it, because then that also gives a weight to the decision to do it, which is always fun.
We have a fancy new column in our Excel sheet of like, I have a year calendar, y'all. But we got a easier way to track a backlog of ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and I've already wrote player allowances, the give and take of what we allow players to do, compromises, etc., etc. Because we touch on this a lot,
Yeah.
and most of the time it chalks it up to like allow reflavoring and stuff like that. But I think like I I I want to. We got to go, but like I want to chew on that whole that the benefits of like the compromise without like
I
it
think
doesn't
we
have to
we
derail things and
accidentally
doesn't.
get
Yeah.
into this topic a lot.
Yeah. So I think taking time to chew on this is really good. But going back to the main thing then, do you have any sort of final say so on puzzles or like don't do blank? I would love to do more physical puzzles, like in
Mhm.
the sense of, if you take the time to like physically create something,
Mhm.
then it becomes less abstract, because I'm not the person where I need a map. I'm really great with theater of the mind.
Sure.
I know people that need to see the battle map, need to see minis, need to see
Right.
that representation of elevation, stuff like that. I realize that I am theater of the mind all the way until it becomes a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where I need the physical thing. So something so simple as like, what if I just handed out a jigsaw puzzle. It's a
Yeah.
10-piece one, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
But then like you add like an egg timer element to it, or it's just like, do that multi, like we're gonna do a combat while you're solving that puzzle thing. But like I think that it just takes 15 minutes and maybe a printer, or just literally construction paper and a pen, just doing more physical. If you can, here's the puzzle.
Mhm.
You see,
I mean,
do it. You know what I
I've
mean? Because then that makes
seen-
it more enjoyable. Because that's what I think I need.
I've seen in a game, we had like an actual just like flimsy jigsaw puzzle that we got from like Dollar Tree. It's like a 50 piece or something like that. And I like assembled the puzzle and then flipped it over onto the back and like wrote out a message on individual pieces, so that there's like one letter in each piece or something like that, and then like break up the puzzle, put it back in the box, give it to the players, and they like assemble the puzzle. And then once it's assembled, the like message is on the back so that they know like the information they need or something like that. Like that can be a great way to be like, oh, here's a really difficult riddle. Here is a puzzle. If you solve the puzzle, the answer to the riddle is revealed. Like it gives different ways to do the like the things that you want to do. Yeah, it again is just providing alternate routes for players to take to get to the same answer can be very helpful.
So, what do you want to leave people with on National Corn Chip Day? What do you want people to walk away with?
Well, I mean, we've got 3 holidays today, right? So I feel
3,
like
yep.
I feel like that is just a great way to do the calls to action this time.
I think they make for a real noisy puzzle. That's just
they make
I
for
look
a
at
real
them.
noisy puzzle. Guys, thank you all so much for being here. Until next time, remember to go find some bubble wrap and pop all of it. Just absolutely annihilate it. If you can find that, I don't know if it technically classifies as bubble wrap, but in my head it's in the same category of just the like large air cushion packs that they put in like bigger boxes. You know what I'm talking about? They're just like
yeah.
big
I
air
guess
packs.
I would still consider that bubble wrap. That's just me. But
I still classify it there. Find those and then put them on the floor and just jump into the air and land on them. And just pop them, make giant noises. That's very fun. Go solve a puzzle. That could be like just getting an actual like cardboard puzzle and like assembling it, or doing like riddles, or doing a like whatever you want to do. But like find a puzzle and solve it. And eat corn chips. that's just eat them. They're good. Get some various dips, like a hummus or a I had a caramelized onion dip recently that was amazing. Like get some dips, eat some corn chips. They're freaking yummy. Like, hey, big corn chip, hit us up.
Yo,
like,
we'll shill
we'll
for big
corn chips. I freaking love corn chips, man. They're great. You get some like I think like there's so many chips that are like technically a corn chip, I think.
Yeah. I haven't done this, but like it's one of those things where like every time I see it done, I'm like, why don't I? I'm a chili connoisseur. I love chili.
Yeah.
Favorite thing ever. But like I've seen people like just take a bag of corn chips and like
crunch it up and
chili
dump
in
it. Oh yeah.
Right?
Almost like a walking taco.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't do that because I'm an idiot.
Right. Yeah. Like there's no good
I linked
reason
in the
not
chat
to.
the countdown puzzle that I like from Z Bashu.
Nice.
For anybody that wants to check that out. But Hunter, as always, thank you for being you. And I know we were both tired, and then I don't know. I feel like, you know what's funny? Like I know you got caffeine, but when the caffeine hit me, I respect that when the caffeine hit me, you matched the energy, and I don't know how easy that was for you. And then you had the caffeine, I'm sure that helped. But I was just like, this man is a professional.
I'm a performer.
He knows how to turn it on, and I before we leave, I want everybody to know this man's the truth. This man's real.
well, thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Thank you to everybody else out there who is hanging out with us this morning. Have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your week. We will be back on Friday with more.
Maybe we'll have a surprise on Wednesday. I don't know. We keep joking about it.
We keep joking about it. We should have we should have a conversation. But yeah, otherwise Friday. We'll for sure be here Friday.
We will be here Friday.
Possibly Wednesday. Keep an eye on the Discord. And we'll catch up with y'all then. Have a great rest of your weeks. Later, everybody. We're out.